Panda Anthem.
Ian, what's up?
Red Panda Anthem.
Red Panda, what's good?
Red Panda Anthem.
So let's get into this. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this situation. Twitter and Elon Musk. This is what everybody wants to talk about. Elon Musk, he's been on he's doing Elon. Elon's being Elon. He wrote a letter, I think it was to the CEO, saying that he wanted to buy the company. I think it was for $43 billion. Yeah. I think that's like $54 a share, something like that.
Yeah, it was at 54.
He gave a whole explanation of why it made sense. He was like, it's 30% more than when he purchased the original shares at. He's been a holder of Twitter stock for a while. He feels that Twitter is the platform of freedom of speech, but he needs to have full control over it. So he offered a buyout to take the company private. Yeah. But he wants 100% control of the situation. They have not responded. Have they responded yet?
Yeah, they responded.
What they say? They're not interested? Just not interested.
No point. Yeah, well, first in January of this year, he bought 9% of the shares. So that was the first move. So he put the shares in place first. And now he's the largest stakeholder, Ian?
Yeah.
I know Vanguard as an entity had like 11%, but him as a single person, he had 9% of the shares. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first thing. Now he's the largest shareholder. And then he came in with like, yo, this is run so poorly. I need to take full control. It's $43 billion. They were like, wait, that's not even enough. But also, no. But then Twitter stock is up $3 today. Yeah. It's up in the after hour. So a lot of people think like he did it to kind of start the bidding war and to like, he is still a stockholder, right? Mm-hmm. He does a lot of things that has like borderline. Yeah, but
SEC no borderline. If some of the stuff he does to put his thumb in the face of the SEC. Ultimately, Elon's incredibly intelligent. I think this is not about a battle of freedom of speech. It is about Elon gaining control of a platform so he can be one of the most important political figures in our country. I know some people over the weekend were saying he is going to try to push to make an amendment so he can run for president. I highly doubt that will ever happen. But if he does have a platform the same way that Bezos does with Washington Post, after you accumulate a certain amount of money, number one, you do need a media platform in which you can control or at least fight back against certain attacks. So that's first thing first. Second, Twitter is a poorly run company. So if you held it for a 10-year period, you almost are flat. He made a good offer, but I think he should have forced the board's hand and really pushed to offer $81 a share, which has been like uptick above the all-time high. Now the board wouldn't be able to fight that offer. I put over on Twitter, I think Friday, you're going to see the real power players step up. We talked about this when we was in Mexico, and then the royal family in Saudi Arabia stepped up and said, hey, it's not enough money for you to be able to offer this price for Twitter. So there's a couple of things that I think, a couple of mistakes people are making. I think the media has gotten so soft. We see it with CNN Plus. They only have, I think, 10,000 active subscribers. I think they spend $150 million on that platform. I think media has gotten so boring and so sensitive that you do need a platform in which you're able to speak freely, but we have to be very careful on who controls those platforms and who will be able to take advantage of them. But the biggest issue here is Twitter is a subpar tech company. I've never heard, like, this is the most viral, non-important story I've ever heard. Like, no one cares about Twitter except for the few people that are on it. But I want you guys to go dig deep. What is the purpose of Twitter as a tech company currently?
Well, you also have to look at Twitter as not so the social media. It's called social media for a reason. I don't think people even fully understand social media, because even when I said it, I'm like, this is, in my opinion, this would be a play to make him one of the most powerful men in media.
Absolutely.
And it's like they're like media, like Twitter's not a media company. I'm like, well, what is it? It's a media company.
Of course.
And it's like when you look at social media is dictating media. Stories are being created on social media. This is the whole Russia thing, what happened to Facebook. Stories are actually literally being created on social media. And if they're not created on social media, they're going viral on social
amplified
media.
there.
They're
Yeah,
amplified on social media. So when you look at social media, Facebook is out of play, obviously. Mark Zuckerberg, it's not you can't buy Facebook.
Yeah.
TikTok situation that passed. If you wanted in on that opportunity is gone. And then it's like, what else do you have? Snapchat, not really something that, is real. I don't really see Snapchat as a major player in the years to come. Twitter is actually a place where people get news from.
Yeah.
It's where respected journalists and people actually go. So this is one of the few opportunities. Microsoft owns LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the few opportunities to actually out there left.
Yeah.
So he's looking at, okay, if I can control Twitter, now I have a real, push in media, and overnight becomes one of the strongest players in media.
Yeah.
So now he's not only the world's richest man, he's one of the most powerful people in media.
Yeah.
Endless power.
And can control narratives whenever he wants.
I agree 1,000% with what you're saying. When you think in terms of news, where do people get their news? Right? Like if I'm writing for the Washington Post, if I'm writing for the New York Daily News or the Journal, the Post, I can get it out faster by just putting my thoughts out on Twitter rather than sending it to an editor to say, can I get approved to put this out? And so most people don't even waste that time. If they get news, the first thing they do is put it right on Twitter. Even like we even see it in sports. Yeah. When Woj puts out a report, the first place he puts it is Twitter before it even goes to ESPN.com. He puts the news out and then he has to type up the entire article, send it to an editor, get it approved. And then like 5 to 20 minutes later, it'll be posted on ESPN.com. That's the same thing in any type of journalism. Whereas like Twitter is like, all right, I got a thought, boom, I'm putting it out. Good or bad. The interesting part about that whole story was that the former founder of Twitter, he had something to say, right? So like, as they're doing this, he was like, look, the number one dysfunction of Twitter has been its board. And so that's when Elon was just like, look, this board doesn't even own a lot of shares of the company for them to have this much power. So they were going back and forth. And he was just like, think about that. Like the founder is watching his company being dragged on its own social media. And he's like, look, those people right there that sit at that table, they're the reason we're in dysfunction.
I mean, when you sit on a board and you're making $2.5 million a year or $3 million a year, it's really hard to have an incentive. Like I think the CEO that is there now is solid. I don't think he's the second coming to Tim Cook, but like when you have a salary like that, it's really hard to have a lot of change. And then like we're going through a pivotal point right now where the corporate structure is going to change. And a lot of games that used to be played will not be able to be upheld over these next 10 or 15 years. Ultimately, I think the 4 companies that should buy Twitter, because they're not going to let Elon do it. I think Robinhood should make a push to buy Twitter. Them or Crypto.com would be like the leading 2 companies. If I were behind them, I would push like hell to get Twitter. Because now most people are getting financial information from Twitter. Now, if Robinhood acquires them and it's now integrated into their platform, now you have a different kind of moat, right? Of course, Apple's always in the running. I don't think they want a social media company, but they could be a good player. And then on the back end, Disney would be absolutely amazing. They're not going to let Elon take control of this company. But going back to my conspiracy theory bag real quick, do we want a non-born American to run one of the biggest social media platforms that is American-based in history? I am telling you, man, when this hits the fan, if this guy gets one of these platforms, whew, man, this sounds like a Bond movie. Sounds like a Bond movie.
Did you hear about the thing with him and Putin?
No, what happened? Far more money.
No, the satellite.
Oh, no.
What happened?
They said that they were sitting in satellite. One of the Russian warships, I guess, got sunk, and there was like, I guess Putin was trying to figure out who sent the coordinates. It's like, nobody knew the coordinates of it. And apparently they said that. So it's a rumor, but they said like Elon, when they did the knowledge on it, they found out that there was a satellite in space.
Oh, the Starlink?
And it was Elon's satellite. So now Putin talking about he's going to shoot down the satellite. So
that was, I mean, if you haven't seen that, I think it's Business Insider. They had an interview with Elon. It's like a 10-minute interview when you can actually hear his brain like out loud. It's just like this guy's mind is just different. But one of the first things he said was, Putin, he has far more money than me. And most people, like I said, we talk about wealth and people who we can account for their wealth, and we know like he may be potentially worth $250 billion. For him to come out, the first line of the interview is like, that guy has way more money than me, way more.
He's also playing a political game because that's a political statement to try to, for him to even say that, whether it's true or not,
Right.
for him to say that, that's a politically driven statement for him to say, because he's trying to obviously, put Putin in a bad light. And then he's also been very vocal about his support for Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
So politics is something that he might get into also, because he's already kind of carving out different political stances.
If you have a platform that
it makes
it push everybody in the Doge, you can then pick a candidate that you want to run for president and puppet. Like the purpose to get money is to get enough control politically to be able to control the country. We just get taught about the first piece. That's why people with money, after you get to a certain number, like the money part doesn't matter. What really matters is like, can you get the mechanisms in place to be able to have power to control and protect the money?
It's the chessboard. Like he strategically had this planned out, right? There's a reason why he bought the shares. There's a reason why him and Jack Dorsey are working on the solar farm. There's a reason for it. Like, we just hear about it 3 to 4 months later, but they've been planning it before, well before this.
And he doesn't have a house right now, he said.
Yeah, he's living
in his name. That sounds good. That
like he on his car. Yeah, he on his car. Yeah,
he live in a guest room of his boys.
Kanye got it from him, but it was like, that's one of people like, well, Buffett doesn't own any planes or yachts. I'm like, not in his name. If you go look at the company, though, do you think Buffett's living in that rinky dink house and all? That's
he lives in the $5 billion factory in Texas.
That's marketing. I hear you. But Elon is either going to be like the greatest thing we've ever seen and the greatest economic savior that we've ever seen in the United States of America, or he's going to be the greatest Trojan horse ever. You have to be very careful. I love Elon as an entrepreneur, but this can turn left very fast. I'll say that and leave it there.
So speaking about Twitter, what's Twitter stock? What's the 3-month projection for Twitter stock? Should people be investing in Twitter? I know a lot of people wanted to play short-term options on this, playing the news.
It's a good trade. I wouldn't hold it for long term. At some point, Twitter should drop down to like $25.13. So
$25.13. Write it down, ladies and gentlemen. Book it.
$25.13.
Is it better than Google? Is it better than Apple? Is it better than Facebook? Is better than Twitter as a stock? TikTok, even though not publicly traded here, I can make the case that Alibaba is better than Twitter. And if one person can move a stock this much, that shows like Twitter is Tony Kukoc. Could have been great, had a couple good seasons, but it's not what they're hyping it up to be.
That's
Tony.
That's a basketball Hall of Famer. By the way.
What Hall of Fame?
No, he's in the Hall of Fame. That's a fact.
The NBA Hall of Fame?
No, there's just a basketball Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because of Euro.
I mean, it's ball, man. It is what it is.
This that Red Panda Anthem.
Ian, what's up?
This that Red Panda Anthem.
Red Panda,
This
what's
that
good?
Red Panda Anthem. Whole foot going up. I know they can't stand it.